So with that, our program for today is we have three teachers who are going to teach for 5 minutes, and I will very rudely cut you off after 5 minutes, not because I don't respect your teaching, but because we just want to make sure we move to everything. And then at in a 20 minutes, we have two guest presenters from the theater world coming to share like a super cool show that was like live streamed online, and I'm so excited to share this all with you and have them talk about their project. Um, so, with that, Patrick, and the order will be Patrick, and then Marlene, and then Ava. So, Patrick, we're turning it off to you, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. For those of you who I don't know or haven't met, my name is Patrick Syria. I teach in New Jersey, Dalcroze teacher based in New Jersey. I teach in a public school district that's all special needs and at-risk students. So one of the schools I teach at, for example, is all students on the autistic spectrum, ages pre-K through middle school. And then the other school that I teach at is developmentally and or physically disabled students, middle through high school. And then third school is at-risk students with behavioral and emotional classifications. But today I thought I would show you one of the lessons that I do because in one of my classes at school, or multiple classes I should say, I have out of the 10 students, 5 who are nonverbal, meaning that they can make sounds, but they can't form words or language. So with those students, oftentimes, my goal is to just get them to respond with me physically in the music. And I use very small movements. They also have sensory-based delays, so I like to incorporate a lot of tactile-based things as well. So here's one of the things that I use. I hope you can see that okay. Can everybody see what I'm pointing to?
We can see a music stand, but I can't see what's written on it.
Okay, so
That's closer. That's better now. Thank you.
Okay, this is just an example. It's a piece of like foam type paper, and I put wooden dowels on top of it. Every student in the class gets one. And if you notice, there's different lengths of wooden dowels. And this lesson is based on sort of longer notes, which I play as half notes. And then the shorter dowels are representative of quarter notes. I use the wooden dowels because it gives the students something to touch and run their fingers along while I play on the piano. I should also tell you that in that class, 3 of my students are in wheelchairs, so they can't stand up and physically move. So they appreciate being able to physically join in with the class. So in this lesson, what I would do first is I actually begin by clapping our hands and demonstrating to them how we're going to say the word long, long, and then we do short, 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 short. So like long, long, short, 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 short. By the way, I actually got that idea from Marlene down in Miami. She did a great little session in Miami. I got that idea from her. But then once I show them the movement with our hands so they can feel that, I then get them to show me 2 fingers just so they get used to going from hands to fingers. And the same thing again, long, long, short, 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 short. And then they're able to take that 1 finger, and then we verbally and using touch, use the dowels with the words. So long, long, short, 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 short. And then what I'll do is I'll then move to the piano. I'm using my electric piano because my piano hasn't been tuned since the pandemic. But then I'll have them put their finger on the first one and move with the music eventually. So it'll be. So they're actually interacting first with their hands, then with their fingers, then on the paper and with the dowels, and then eventually with the music. With the kids who can physically move, I'll have them stand up and move their bodies as well. The other thing that I do is, since a lot of them are nonverbal and can't make the sound, I'll bring a straw in with me to class. A lot of the students, I observed that when they go to the cafeteria and eat lunch, they're able to use that breathing and breath mechanism with a straw. So I thought I would bring it into music class. And I started having them breathe into the straw with the long and the short. So that's one of the other things that I did. It incorporated just another physical as well as verbal activity for them. So they would actually breathe in long and blow out through the straw. One of my classes, I'm really excited, I have them doing it on kazoos now, which is like a big advance for them. And then just real quick, another thing that I do with the kids.
So Patrick, 30-second warning.
Okay, so I have another tactile based thing where the staff is the dowels, and then I take these letters and they're actually able to point to the letters on the staff. It's a tactile based thing, and I match pitches. With the notes, and they're moving rhythmically and making the sound O. That's where I eventually take it with them. So those are just two of the things that I do. I use a lot of other things like this, which is like, again, a visual cue to show how notes ascend and descend. I always try and incorporate that touch element with the sound and the music so they can sort of react in different ways.
Patrick, thank you so much.
Patrick,
Really
show your face again. Tip your thing. There he is. There's Patrick.
You're getting lots of wavy thumbs up and silent applause. Marlene.
Hello, everyone. I'm an inner city music teacher, grades K through 5. A variety of play activities are often lacking in my students' backgrounds. This lack is significant and becomes an impediment for music making. Becoming comfortable with one's body while building a movement vocabulary aids and supports fine motor development. So I often begin with one of my favorite pieces while everybody is sitting in their seats with one of my favorite songs, which is Chocolate, 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 Chocolate. Now side to side. Chocolate, everybody's following me while I'm doing this. And stop. And another thing I must install when I'm going to eventually end up waking up all their fingers and hands is to make sure we start and stop together. And it's also a very simple way of beginning. We're just in our seats and we do like a bump. And it also turns into a follow. Bump, 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 bump. And I can go really fast. And stop. We'll practice that until the kids stop together. You right on a dime. It's wonderful. And they're usually hysterical laughing with this. And we'll swing our feet to this. Clap hands. There's a variety of ways of waking up their body in their seats. The next thing, which is very attractive for inner city kids, is a scarf. And again, focusing on this, I'll throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch, and stop. I do everything with the other hand too, which is a wonderful challenge. Throw and stop, throw and catch, and everything is done to music. Throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch, throw and catch. So that is going. Also, just an aside, you can say, where did my scarf go? Here's a leaf. There's a leaf that you see makes two. Open up and watch your bud grow for you. So they're using their fingers, and this becomes a very social activity. Would you smell my flower? They love this. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing with the scarf is, this is a square. Now it's a rectangle. A square. It's a rectangle. Now it's a square. It's a rectangle. And look at that. I have a baby square. And they often turn that into a flower. I do the same thing with triangles. And they are doing all of this along with me. A little slower tempo, of course. But we're going to turn a triangle into a smaller triangle. And then a smaller triangle. And a smaller triangle. And everybody, they take this very seriously. I'm showing you things that work time and again. So
1 minute warning, Marlene.
one more minute?
Mhm.
Wow, okay. I'll often say, hello, hand. And introduce directionality with a pencil. So again, it's up and down on a piece of paper. And the kids are drawing to music, and down, up and down. So they are familiar with the directionality, and then side to side and side to side, and circle, big, large circles. And often I will get, this is what the children, everybody's paper usually looks identical because we are drawing to music, and it does turn into a huge ear training lesson where if we're doing staccatos or jumping with our pencils, it'll be my turn, your turn, and they go tap, 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 then my turn, tap, 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 tap. So we get the visuals, and they are all the directions are articulated. And the last thing I can quickly show you is developing self-control, and we go up and down the same music, up and down and side to side, and it's balanced, and we do this with both hands. And then we get into show me a new place, and I start socializing them. And one other thing.
Marlene, thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Beautiful teaching. Thank you. Yes, lots of applause and thumbs up here. Ava. So Ava, make sure you unmute yourself.
Students. So this is the idea is.
Great, we can hear
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's how to, starting from an improvisation exercise, how to transform it into something that can be useful for ear training or rhythmic class. So this is the exercise. So just to let the hand go on the piano, the 5 fingers go wherever they go on the piano, and you make 5 sounds. You take 1 off and you work only with 4 sounds, and you play those 4. And then you change 1 of this note and change another 1. Can either go up or down. And so on. So I asked them, would you, since you're sitting on the chair, would you show me when a note, when the chord changes by changing a position on the chair, whatever is very comfortable or easy for you. Let's start. So you notice that I change regularly, right? Every 4. So we can now try to do, I will change at random, sometimes every 3, sometimes every 4, sometimes every 5 or whatever. And you show me what you hear. When the chord changes, you show me by your position. Was it clear for the, could you hear?
Yes, it was beautiful. Thank you.
Yes?
We have
Very
about
good.
1 more minute if you'd like.
1 more minute. So the next step would be whenever you hear a dominant 7 chord, we will find a gesture which is common to everyone, like let's say that. So no matter which dominant 7 will do. Eh? And then we start from here and we do the same. Okay. And then, well, we don't have time, and then but I think the sound, the system won't work for the singing, but I would ask them, whenever you hear a dominant 7, you sing it, and then you solve it, resolve it, huh? Into a major, or into a minor chord. Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
very much. Beautiful. Thank you. I really enjoyed all that music. It's nice to not hear so much talking and just everyone sharing their music too. Thank you for that. These are really wonderful suggestions. We're going to move on to the next part. As Steve and I mentioned, we have a pretty full program today, so we just prioritized getting ideas out to you rather than leaving as much time for discussion as usual. I do feel like maybe we can do a minute of reflections since our guest presenters are not here yet and they're coming
So I'll
shortly.
start with that and just say that when teaching Dalcroze pedagogy, one of the things that I emphasize is how there isn't just one end to the lesson or only one next activity. And so as I was, for all of those presenters, as they showed their sort of first little bit, and they were all very limited in only having these 5 minutes, as they showed their first little bit, I think it's so exciting to think, oh, what are the 20 things we could do now that we started that? Like that last exercise, as she as Eva played the repeating chord and then we felt that there was a change, like how many ways, how many different things could we turn that lesson into? And so she took it in the direction of the dominant seven, which actually in itself is also not a completed exercise. There's still 20 more things we could do from there. But it also, even at the point of changing to dominant seven, it could have been changed to something else. It could have been about the gesture more than about the solfege. It could have been about the partnering rather than the, there's so many different things that it could go to. And I think that's really exciting. And if we had more time for pedagogy, it would be fun to have that sharing session where we all invent the next step from the same common starting point. So that's what I always think of.
Can I just say, Stephen, off of what you just said, I think it's so true, all of that. And I think that's why what we're doing is important. But I think that getting things like this out to a larger audience, especially at this point in time, would be huge, because you look at all these ideas that just came in 15 minutes, not blowing my own horn, but a lot of really cool ideas, and the message of you could do so much more, I think is a great inspiration for not just music teachers, but even classroom teachers,
Yeah, thank you. All right, one of our guest presenters is here already. His name is Dan Safer, and we're still waiting for Ashley Tata to, I'm sure she'll be joining us shortly. I'm just gonna start introducing this project. So I found out about it literally 5 days ago, and it is a theater production called Mad Forest at Bard College. And it was originally scheduled to be a live theater performance with college students with a professional creative team coming in to direct them. And they had 3 weeks of in-person rehearsal, and then the pandemic hit, everything got canceled and shut down, and they all made the choice to perform it on the Zoom platform. And so they spent their remaining 3 weeks totally reimagining the show. The concept was not to just film a stage, but to say, like, how are we going to use this Zoom technology to perform? And I'm gonna, rather than talking about it all up front, I'm gonna just share with you 4 clips from the show. It's a 2-hour production that is available on YouTube, and you're all welcome to watch it. And I would especially recommend the second act if you don't have 2 hours. For all of us as Dalcrozians, there's a beautiful 20-30 minute movement sequence there. I will say that the 4 clips, the first and the last, have violence and strong language. So if you have children around or other people, just a heads up. And Stephen, can we just go to the 4 clips? It's going to be 2 minutes or a minute each, and there's 4 of them.
Okay, here's the first.
Oh, sorry, can I say one more thing?
Throwing celebration crackers up against walls. My father had an attack of...
Sorry, I should tell you what the play is about. So it's set in 1989 in December, the Romanian Revolution, where a communist dictator was overthrown. And so Act 1 is before the revolution. Act 2, which is this first clip, is like the actual day of those events and the characters responding. And the third act is life afterwards and what changed, what hasn't changed. And these are based on true stories, and the play was written in just a few months after those events.
Cramps couldn't move any further.
In the palace square, when the tanks turn around, we are afraid they will fire on us again, but they turn toward Ceausescu's balcony.
I saw books and papers being thrown down from the balcony. I thought I must do something. Well, I went to the radio station, and I heard Wake Up Romania playing, and I realized it was a victory.
About 12:30, I heard on the radio, "Wake up, Romania," the anthem which used to be banned, and announcers apologized for not telling the truth. They had been made to lie. Everyone began to cry and laugh. The doctors and the orderlies were equal. We saw an appeal on TV for blood at a friend's house, so I went to the hospital with our friend's son-in-law. There were hundreds of people waiting to give blood, but only 50 bottles. Luckily, I was able to give blood.
Another bottle of champagne, and went home to celebrate.
I went home about 3, and my husband has bought 6 bottles of champagne, and we called our neighbors in. For the first time in my life, I felt free to laugh. We went to the TV station. It was surrounded by cars beeping and soldiers wearing armbands to show that they were with the people. We were told the water was poisoned by Securitate, so I went to the store to buy some milk so my doggy could have something to drink.
In the afternoon, I go to meet my mother when she comes out of school. Everyone is shouting, "Olé, olé, olé, olé," and the cars, they honk their horns. Then I go to see my grandmother to show her that I am all right.
That night, the terror shooting started. There was no quiet place.
When the terror shooting started, I was at home and I heard it. My legs buckled, I vomited, I couldn't go out. It took me weeks to get over that.
About 7 o'clock, we heard on the radio, "Help, our building is being attacked." So I went out again.
At the radio station, I'm scared. My husband says, "Why you come then?" Terrorists shoot from a building, and my husband goes with men inside and catch them. They are.
So while Steven's moving to the next clip, I'll just point out that all of this is live. It was, all the actors are interacting live from 11 separate locations in their homes.
The communists.
He was a party member. Very big Securitate man. Big round here.
So whose side was he on?
He wasn't a nice man. Nobody liked him.
Rome and Pompeii.
Sleep late in the morning. Sea.
Paint what I see in my head.
Go into work tomorrow and everyone's better. Gabriel walking. New shoes.
Paintbrushes with fine points.
Drive a fast car. Be famous.
Toblerone.
Make money.
Learn everything in the world by the end of the week. We are buying meat.
Buying meat.
Carne.
Down with Ceausescu.
Six.
Doi oameni stau la.
This is our last clip. And I am sorry to spoil the end for you. I thought this was amazing. It does kind of give away the end, but they managed to stage a fight scene with 11 people in separate rooms. I think that is wild and so cool. So here it is.
Slave? I'm not your slave.
Leave my son alone, Hungarian bastard, and don't touch my daughter either!
I'm already fucking your daughter, you stupid peasant!
No!
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to introduce Ashley Tata first. She's the director, and I'll spotlight her. Ashley, can you say hello and a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, and Dan Safer is also here as a choreographer. Thanks, Veronica, for asking us to be here. Yeah, directed that production.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Dan, let me find you in here to spotlight you.
I got it.
Dan, feel free. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Safer. Yes, thank you for having us. And I choreographed the production.
Awesome, thank you. We are so grateful that you're here because as Dalcroze practitioners, we have so much to learn about movement from you specifically, and then also just about what it's like to convey something to an audience via a screen. Like, we are all trying to teach through the screens. And so I'll just go through my questions, but if people have other questions, feel free to add them in the chat box, and hopefully we'll try to address those as well. So my first question is, how did you engage your audience in the Zoom stage? What did you have to do differently than in live theater? And what makes for effective storytelling in live video production?
Oh, okay. As far as just the Zoom platform, or this live feed platform, when we were talking to the IT people about how we wanted it to be broadcast, it was important to us that we had a feedback loop for the performers. So the chat feature on YouTube and Facebook was engaged so that I could send comments directly into the Zoom feed for the actors, so that there was some kind of, so that they felt that they were being watched in real time, which I think is as important as the audience having a sense of the thing happening in real time. And then there were some things that we were taking from kind of like Twitch stream culture, or like, watching gamers play culture. We had like a pre-game 15 minutes, which was just us kind of, I mean, in some ways this is also taken from like some of, like Minushkin or kind of theatrical devices of the audience walking through the backstage to get to the stage. And so there's, I think the first 15 minutes of that broadcast, you'll see it's the actors kind of in their squares, just setting their props and things off camera. And then, I broadcast some, ways of engaging with the event, things about telling them that they could engage with the chat feature and that people would be filtering their conversation, and their applauses and things like that and gasps were very welcome in chat. So, and then I guess as far as the, storytelling, was that the question?
Telling stories online.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this piece we pivoted, we had an IRL production designed and had rehearsed, had staged most of it. And then we, pivoted to this online platform. But I think that the dramaturgy, I think that the material supported that dramaturgy, having to do with, being in a surveillance state and feeling the confinement of that in the first act, and then the kind of the docudrama of the second act. And that's also something that I think Zoom in particular is a pretty good platform for, because it's about I think that Zoom is in some ways strangely personal, because you're talking directly to a camera and to other people, and also there's a kind of immersive idea because you're in your own home sharing that with other people. So I feel like that kind of worked for the second act. And then in the third act, I mean, that was the thing that was more concerning, because of the structure of the play means that people start to speak over each other, and there's more physicality. Like there's the fight that's written in the play. But I think that part, it wasn't, I mean, I don't know that the story happened to work for this medium. I don't know, at one point I was going to do a production of like a Greek piece, and I don't know if that would have translated, or I don't know if we would have been able to go ahead with that if it were a different material. I would say that so I think that as far as connecting to an audience, what was what was interesting, or what we were interested in at the time, and I don't know if I would change it if it were a different project, but what I was really interested in was, making it feel like the performers are in the same space for acts 1 and 3, and then obliterating that, kind of breaking the fourth wall, as it were, and creating a more like one-on-one experience for act 2, as they were doing more documentary reporting. And that act also, in the play that Carol wrote, that second act is basically a verbatim transcript of interviews that they made with Romanians in 1990. So
Thank you. Dan, I'm going to let you jump in, and then I think we should go to the questions in the chat and not the questions I wrote.
Sure. Are you guys hear me? Am I on?
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of bowed everything Ashley just said, and she was really the mastermind on how to construct it to convey it to an audience. And I felt like my job on this was more like being a cog in the bigger machine. I did think about what kind of like movement translates and communicates to an audience, because you already have a built-in frame. I began to discover pretty quickly that a lot of my choreography was like, are you at this side or at this side and near? And so it's like really beginning to work with the frame. That way was like, that was more of a communication tool. And often as a choreographer, I feel like I'm an editor and like a collager of movement. And that part was left completely to Ashley on this one. I had to have them generate the raw stuff. And it was really about like,
talk about how you generated that raw stuff? I think I saw you post that Mad Forest recipe.
Yeah,
process.
I do a lot of, I almost never go into a rehearsal, whether it's, I've never done a Zoom rehearsal before this project, but I never go in with movement set that I teach to people. We always generate it together, and it's always very task-based. And I have a series of tasks that I'll give, and they'll generate movement, and then we'll edit that together and work, and I'll pluck different things out and change different things, and then collage stuff back together. In this case, it was way more handing it over to them to go like, you have to generate stuff that will be raw material that then Ashley and I can look at and see how we're gonna play with it. But a lot of the process that would have been done in rehearsal was done live via editing, like Act 2, which I feel like is the dancey one. And that's where most of my work was. A lot of that was on Ashley's plate in terms of how it was sequenced together. I just had to get them to build the raw sequences.
So
yeah, just to jump in to clarify that, because I'm Act 2, Act 1 and 3, I have like a script that I gave to our mixer, who, that has all the camera shots that I wanted based off of text and, cutaways and reaction shots and things like that. Act 2, I'm mixing live by, being in the Zoom, being in gallery view and going, oh, what visual, there are echoes between some of their gestures, so I can cut to, people doing hand thing, another person doing a hand thing, and then also based off of what the text is doing and just seeing what might resonate with what I'm hearing at the time. So I think, so in that case, that's like a live, that's a very, sure. That changes every rehearsal, Yeah.
So is that editing that you're doing there, is that by spotlighting individual videos?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, that there's that ability. I haven't thought
Well,
of
they
that.
had a specially modified version of Zoom.
So there are two things. One is, so the live cuts that happen in Act 1 and 3, that's with the modified version of Zoom that allows the keyboard to become a hotkey, so you can mix it like a live broadcast. Act 2, I didn't have that hotkey ability, so I was doing exactly like what you would do, going to all the thumbnails, hitting the drop down, hitting spotlight. I was doing that. So anybody can, I'm just saying, you don't need the modified version to do that. And we did a week or so of rehearsal with our mixer doing just like that, but I had mapped out every camera that they should go to ahead of time so that was planned. But it certainly is easier to do. You can more elegant, you can do it quicker if you have the hotkey thing. Yeah.
So Veronica, if I can.
Yeah, so can we just go in order? So Anthony asked, are there things your students learned throughout this process that they would not have learned in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, you know, there's a very practical thing. One is that, you know, Eamon, who's the video designer on this, and he and I have worked together, and, you know, Dan and I have worked, there are a lot of us who are working on this project who are like, you know, from the downtown theater or whatever. And when Eamon and I we had, our load-in was, you know, the production team shipped to the students green screens, lighting instruments, all the props, all the costumes. And so our load-in was the production team and myself signing on to a Zoom session with all the students and like helping them figure out, and we did studio visits before where we said, what room are you using? How are you going to set it up? Where are you going to put your costume rack? Where are you going to put your props thing? So I think that you know, so, and then Eamon and my joke was like, we're going to make downtown theater artists out of them, whether they want to or not. And I think that what we meant by that was that they had to become pretty self-sufficient. And, you know, there are things like the stage manager couldn't have control over, you know, whether or not they charge their Bluetooth headset. So I think in some ways it's really empowering to the artist to say, you know, here, this is your tool. How are you going to make your studio for your performance that's going to happen, and kind of close that artistic space off for yourself. And I think that that was really useful. And then the other thing is that it also in some ways made us have to be kind of more I think having a more traditional process. You know, we spent a week and a half of our 3-week IRL rehearsal process doing table work, like just, so I do a lot of actioning of text, which is basically putting a verb to every single idea that is on the page. So, you know, my script is like, back away, whatever that line is, back away from my daughter or whatever it is, you know, that line, you know, like he's to defend his daughter, like whatever it is. So like every single line, every single thought is actions that way. And that all, because we had done that work, that translated to Zoom very well, because what it means is that when they have their Post-it note here that says, I'm acting this scene with Allie right now, and this is where my eye line is, I can like really hit a target with what I'm doing to Allie right now. And that translates, I think, pretty well. Yeah.
Thank you. Dan, anything to add, or next question?
I think Ashley more than covered it. Yeah, we can move on.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. What does Zoom afford? What does it amplify? And what does it diminish also?
Oh, I can jump in. I think the thing that the students talked about that it really afforded was an ability for them to watch each other's work more than in a live process, which was this like great unexpected side effect.
Yeah. I mean, I've been telling people that what I like about this, you know, this medium is it kind of feels like, you know, it kind of feels like because it is live, it feels like a performance art, and then it also feels like video art, you know. And some of the students started looking at video artists, and I think that if we had designed it from the beginning for Zoom, we would have done more of the kind of, you know, that Romanian footage or you know, lifted from, you know, or tried to make gestures towards animation and things like that. And I think that, you know, so for me, what's really fun is kind of is the hyperlink ability of the thing, and how that can play for a contemporary you know, mindset maybe, which so I'm interested in kind of continuing to explore that. I think that what you lose for sure, and this is partially like the webcams that most of us have, and if I were to do it again, I would also, there is a way that you can have Zoom, you go to a different camera feed, which we started using with some of them, but we didn't have enough time. But at least these webcams, they're so, like, the depth of field is so narrow, it two-dimensionalizes everything. So, you know, with the scenic designer, Afsoon, who I think she made something like 300 virtual backgrounds for this production, we had to go from a sense of trying to create depth in the visual landscape and deciding to lean more into kind of a collage aesthetic. And there's like this Romanian visual artist who was working under Ceausescu, who we were able to convert for inspiration. But I think that, you know, again, that was something where we just kind of leaned into what the media gave us and found our own, you know, interesting aesthetic because of that, I think. But yeah, but I think that the kind of, I mean, like it's you know, going back in the camera, you still feel like you're pretty close to the camera, you're just a bit smaller, you know. But those are things that I think you could play with if you plugged in different cameras and had time to set cameras up in different places in the room, you know.
Sure. Dan, could you specifically speak about movement that
Yeah.
is effective in Zoom? Because we're all teachers who use movement to create an experience of music in our students. And we are used to teaching in 3 dimensions, and now we're teaching through screens.
Yeah, well, I sent that recipe, which is like a kind of a very long, complicated thing. But like simple ways that I would say always acknowledging the frame that you're in and the space that you're in is a place to start. But like with Zoom, it'd be like, give me 6 ways you can lay your head on your desk, and then loop those, and then do it 3 times really fast. Like suddenly creates a thing that exists for the actual reality of your situation. And I've been doing, I'm teaching a lot of dance classes online right now. And I've been doing a lot of stuff of generating movement and then going, okay, now put it in the room you're actually in. So put it on your bed, use the door frame, use the window. We did some great stuff in Mad Forest with actually using the space, and they generated things like, remember at one point, one of the performers, Violet, was like punching her pillow against her wall, which is not a thing you would normally be able to do in like a rehearsal studio with everybody standing in the middle of the space. Like it was, how do you utilize and not try to pretend you're in the old version, but really go, what are the boundaries of this version, and push movement in that direction.
Thank you.
So really taking like, and it's like building up a series of very simple tasks turns into a more complex and rich like tapestry.
We have about 2 minutes officially left. I can stay about 5 more. If people have other questions, could you add them here? And then, yeah,
So-
Stephen, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that for our, the majority of the people on the call here or in the meeting are Dalcroze teachers. We come out of a culture of teaching music through the body and through movement. By inviting our 2 actor and theater friends, and thank you so much, Dan and Ashley, both for joining us and sharing your expertise and letting us have a vision into this process that you went through. While none of that is explicitly a music class, what we've been trying to do through these meetups from the very first one is to ask the question, what is possible? And so when we think about our own music teaching, and we think, okay, well, I'm in this now Zoom space. What am I supposed to do with it? Or I'm in some sort of virtual space. What is possible to do? There were just, 100 things that Dan and Ashley showed us and were able to mention that are going on that we could, again, think, all right, what are the 20 things I could do with that? And so I loved just the simple thing that Dan said at the beginning about noticing the frame. And just realizing this is our space that we're working in. In our Eurythmics classes, we spend a lot of time with any of the age student trying to help them develop a movement vocabulary, because our students, Dan, are not dancers first. They are just people who are trying to make music, but we use movement and we have to teach them some kind of range that they're able to move within. And now all of a sudden this box is part of that range. This is something that has to be acknowledged for us to work within if we're going to, and then how close is my camera? Because if I'm this close, I'm only moving 6 inches. And if I pull myself back 6 feet, I might get to stretch out 10 feet. And so like that's a version of the movement vocabulary that's going on. And so I just wanted to point out that even though what's being shared is not explicitly a music class, there's so many rich ideas that we can pirate or just be influenced by thinking what is possible for our own class.
I think also having them, I mean, I don't know how it works specifically with what you're doing, but having, and I think that Ashley and I really connect on is like having them generate. So it's not me giving them movements, it's having them generate stuff. Because, and like one thing I've been discovering is that if I'm doing warm-ups with my students and some of them have a bunch of space, some of them have very little space, and if I'm saying I need you to go like this, it's okay for you to do it like this. It's okay to adapt to fit whatever space you're doing so that you can do it 100% for you.
Absolutely.
So like I think a lot about scale. You know, like if you can't stand up, then can you just straighten your spine? Or if you can't spin in a circle, can you do it with your hand? Like how can you make an adaptation that fits to you?
Yeah, very good. And 95%, I would say, of the movement that goes on in a Eurythmics class is student generated. You know, we have little bits of choreography here and there, but it's not really our practice. Our practice is all, we give a sort of a a nugget for them to sort of build off of, and then it's up to them to sort of come up with something, and then we're just trying to notice what they come up with and then amplify it. And so your process really speaks so clearly to that.
I'm going to jump in with some closing announcements and we can stay and continue. So if you did not get an email directly from me, please type your email in the chat box or send me a private chat, and then I'll add you to the mailing list. We're planning on having a couple meetings in May, about 2 weeks apart, like we've been doing the last few. Please feel free to forward that newsletter to people and share the Google Doc. I have taken out all the email addresses now so that we're not sending a giant Google Doc with lots of emails. And then the recordings are also available to be shared and forwarded. And we just ask that you don't post the recordings or the Google Doc on any website or social media. But otherwise, feel free to email to your friends and colleagues. And just stay tuned in the emails for the next meeting dates. But we can continue this conversation, or we can say goodbye to people who have to go.
I'll just say that Veronica and I are conspiring on many fronts. There are many things in the works. We're not quite ready to announce all of it yet, but we're trying very hard to be committed to this project and to help push it along. And so we're talking that we're going to eventually transition that Google Doc into a web page, which is ongoing, and then we have some other maybe even more exciting ideas popping up. So please stay tuned and share the link and come back. We'll stick around. We've got a little bit of time. If anybody needs to leave at 2:30, we thank you for coming and we say goodbye. And then for anybody else who has more questions or wants to geek out with us, we'll stick around. And again, Ashley and Dan, you guys are the coolest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're super impressed with how you took a hold of that and were able to really turn it into something productive.
Oh,
yeah, and I'll send out a list of the clips so you guys can also follow up those clips. Go ahead, Ashley, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say thanks very much again for having us. And if there are any burning questions right now that we can answer quickly, then I'd be happy to stick around for another few minutes if that's useful.
Anything more for Ashley and Dan? Anyone have something you wanted? Because now we have not such a pressure.
I think there was a question I saw in the chat bar about, hey, did you have a plan B should somebody's reception be awful from home if the screen froze, etc.?
Yeah, we made everybody be on a landline, and we actually had the production manager was driving Ethernet cable and adapters to performers who lived in New York State day of broadcast. So yeah, but I would say I think that everybody is investigating now. I mean, how to get landlines right now because of the bandwidth. Just like another practical thing is that it is the case that if you're trying to broadcast something around like 7-ish, it like everything becomes clogged up for everybody. So I'm trying to push people to not do that time, but yeah. Oh, and I will say also, and we did talk to them about that. We said, we did have a plan in place for having stage management come on and say, I mean, there's a sound thing that happened in that we had a whole process for if it got really bad, but then otherwise we took it, during rehearsals and such, if things would happen, drop out, we took it as kind of like an improv moment, either you keep on going and it's like somebody dropped a line, you deal like that, or if it becomes a catastrophe and we can't recover, then, and I think that in that way, actually for this, that is kind of great because then in case the audience was wondering, it is still live theater or performance, right? So
yeah. Well, and also if you could speak about that chocolate and oranges scene, because when I saw that, I thought it was an intentional artistic choice to have like the loop of the girl talking over herself, and it was like she's just babbling on, and now you've made it more cacophonous because she's babbling over herself. Yeah. But like that was a glitch apparently.
That was like the one actual glitch during that performance was the sound from the designer went back out into YouTube, and so it was creating this echo effect that we couldn't actually hear because we were in Zoom and we had no idea that was happening. And so the composer started texting us saying that there was this weird sound thing happening, and so we almost had to stop to restart the sound, but we figured it out during like a wee interval. But yes, but a lot of people thought that was intentional, and actually the playwright saw it and she was like, I thought that kind of undermined the text, and I was like, no, it wasn't intentional, so but that was our only major glitch of the evening, which is kind of miraculous.
If you have time for one more question, I think this is a great one. How did you keep the energy of your performers during the rehearsals? I find it very hard to keep my players energized and excited without the stimulation of other players.
Yeah, that was definitely a task, and I feel like it was good to some extent that I wasn't in a room with the students, because I found myself during every rehearsal period sweating profusely. Like, and I'm not, I wasn't even moving around. It was just the intensity of having to drive every single word with incredible intention and specificity and inspiration, and feeling that kind of like pressure to have to do that in order to get people behind you for the thing. And then the other thing that I spoke to them quite a bit about during the process was, I just told them how impressed I was and how grateful I was for knowing that it takes a whole lot of energy to manifest your acting partner right there, and you don't get the feedback of your, so what I started to say to them is kind of like when you were a kid, or for some of us later than kid, and have like imaginary friends, and you'd have to like create the whole it's something that actually most of us, especially I think, have some relationship with. So there are whole worlds that we created of imaginary friends. You have to like go back to that and invest it with that kind of energy. But I feel like once I kind of suggested that to them, then they were like, oh yeah. And then the other thing too, and this is something that I don't know what it would be like if we didn't have they had the energy of, they were a cohort who were like pulled apart. So this kind of need to create the relationship of the person who they've been spending a whole lot of time with and who they really care for in that room. Like, I feel like that real kind of like personal drive also translates. And so that's also a whole energy boost. But I talk about it a lot with them, and I ask them, I don't direct sitting down. I also and I ask them actually to create a standing position so that they can put their computer up top. So we're not sitting during these sessions as much as possible. Because I think that makes a difference too.
Thank you.
I would also totally add, and it's a thing that Ashley would never own up to, but all the technology is great, but if you don't have someone like Ashley driving it, the thing doesn't work. Like it actually, the human element is, I think, the most important thing. All the technological stuff we figured out is not worth anything if you don't have, in our case specifically, Ashley driving the thing and keeping it going and keeping everybody motivated and inspired in doing it. And I think that's like the most vital aspect, is it does come back down to a human being.
Yeah, you're talking to a room of eurythmic teachers, and I think we understand that concept deeply.
Oh, yeah.
And so we get it. We are appropriately impressed with what the two of you did, because
I would say this project is like, it was, Ashley assembled a great team, but it was her.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Only as good as the people.
You guys, this is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Pleasure kind of seeing everybody. I look forward to knowing more about your practices and everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Wash your hands. Drink water.
Touch your face.